So welcome, all of you. I'm sure many of you in attendance have also asked yourself, what is it like to work as a product manager in industry now, and how easy is it for me to find a role in product management? How can you make yourself stand out? Today we'll explore what employers are expecting of product managers right now, and how you can even exceed their expectations. Whether you're looking to commence a career in product management, change your careers into product management, or advance your existing product adjacent or current product management role. We also have a great number of announcements throughout and post the event. But for the management of such a large audience and so much interest in the webinar, what we will ask is if it is possible for you to, throughout the event, pop your questions in the Q&A function, not the chat function that you're speaking in now regarding where you're located, but in the Q&A function, and take a moment as it goes to look at the questions, and please do upvote those that you'd like answered, and we'll certainly try and get to as many of them as we can, because it's a lot of this is about you. It's about the benefits that our esteemed panel today can provide in your career. So yeah, by the end, you'll gain insights into the product management landscape, the valued skills that employers are seeking, and practical career growth strategies. Once again, the webinar is recorded and will be distributed to those that are registered but couldn't attend, and for other marketing purposes, so everyone is aware as well. And lastly, we do value your feedback here at FourthRev, and we will be sending around a questionnaire to follow. So please, do engage with the questionnaire and provide any feedback on the event as well. I'm going to, more importantly than me talking, get very, very quickly to our esteemed panel this afternoon and ask our panel to introduce themselves, but also to answer this interesting question. So I'll let everyone turn on their cameras now. We've got Charles, Nick, Simon, Emma, and Caitlin also. So as we go around and do an introduction, if you could let us know obviously your name and the role that you're currently in, but also product managers are all about creating great user experiences and solving problems. So if you were to redesign an everyday product or service and make it absolutely perfect, what would it be and why? I would love to start first with Emma van Dijkum. Welcome, Emma.
Hello, thank you very much. So lovely to have so many participants on this call. So thank you all for coming and joining from around the world. My name is Emma, and I have been in product around 15 years, working across different industries, customer types, environments, and I've scaled businesses from Series A to IPO for companies like Funding Circle, Naked Wines, and Multiverse. I've recently actually just left Multiverse, but I helped them scale their tech team from 16 to over 100 in about 2 years. So I know quite a lot about hiring, as it was practically my full-time job for a little while. And more recently, so I realized I get a huge part of my energy from coaching others, and that's why I've set up my coaching business, product leadership coaching. My partner Lindsay, who's the CPO at the FT, and I offer coaching, consultancy, and advisory services to startup or scale up founders, product leaders, and CEOs. But I
Emma, if you can hear us, we may have just lost you for one moment. We'll come straight back to Emma as quickly as we can.
Can you hear me?
I will. Yes, that's better, Emma. Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry, I don't think my internet would have dropped. Did you catch all of that? Or just anyway, I'll carry on. In terms of the mystery question, the service actually that I would love to redesign is quite topical at the moment, is the NHS. Focused on, solving 4 key problems, I guess: fragmented services, waiting times, staffing issues, and funding. If I could just say, I did a small calculation on, if you're earning a 100K salary And, we spend 180 billion on the NHS today, which is about 10% of GDP. So if you're earning 100K, you pay about 30K of that to income tax, which means you're probably paying 3,000 a year to the NHS. Now, the NHS is amazing service, but obviously there are lots of improvements that could be made. So I'd love to sink my teeth in that one. Lovely to be here.
Thank you, Emma. Apologies for pronunciation as well, but that is really, really interesting. And just as an addendum, we are so proud to have current learners in the Product Management Career Accelerator from the NHS, and we certainly have them in a number of our other programs as well. It is my pleasure now also to introduce Charles. Charles, welcome and thank you.
Hi, everyone. Great to be here, and also amazing that there's so many people here. So fantastic. Yeah, so I'm Charles. I've been in product management for more than 20 years. Started in telecoms and then went to a whole number of startups, I think more than 15. Seen it all, very small teams, bigger teams, worked mainly in music. And then at some point in my career, I thought I'd diversify a bit. And I worked in travel, education, video, prop tech, and now insurance. So yeah, quite a bit of a roller coaster ride there. Also, obviously hired a lot of people, created teams from scratch, worked with small teams from 1 or 2 people to 100 people. And yeah, currently I work at Social, where we basically try to create a better experience for the customers of insurance. We try to restore consumer trust in insurance, really. And the way we do that is to really create a great user experience that also works well for the business. So it's a win-win proposition, basically. Because we improve the customer experience for the user, they can have a better experience in overall about insurance, and we can lower our cost because we bring fraud down, and so we can also give them a better price. So that's kind of the way we approach things. Yeah, and then the question for me, it's a little bit more mundane. I was thinking about Twitter, and specifically about searchability of information, because it feels like only the big influencers get a voice, and hashtags don't really work. The search doesn't really work. And normal users, when they want, even if they have a really great message, often they don't get their voices heard, and it's always the same people you hear. And it's a bit boring. And basically, yeah, it's time for a change there. But I think it's also valid for like podcasts, apps, and Instagram and TikTok and all these very content-rich apps where you basically get stuck into a loop. If you like something about rock, for example, then you get only rock thrown at your face, and it's just a bit boring. Maybe you like music in a wider kind of context. So yeah, that's it for me.
Thanks, Charles. That's very, very interesting, and I'm sure many, myself included, would agree. Over to Nick. Welcome and thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, following on from Charles and Emma. So my name's Nick Jemetta. I'm a product coach and an advisor. My business is called Stories Matter, and my mission is to make work 1% better every day. I operate across multiple domains. I operate in the product space, but I'm also a wellbeing campaigner. So I'm really passionate about making work healthier for us all. And that means getting better at leadership and building great cultures. Prior to that, I've been in product for over a decade, primarily in the retail space. But since working for myself, what I suppose I've realized is that the product mindset, which incorporates lots of different attributes, is transferable. So I've worked in biotech, I've worked in prop tech, I've worked in mobility. I'm currently working in mining. I'm about to pick up a client, fingers crossed, in publishing. And it's been an amazing journey, and going out on my own and being independent, I could never have foreseen at the start of my product career. But when you get into a product career, the opportunities I genuinely believe are endless. My example, I feel bad. Emma's come on high with the NHS and Twitter. Obviously, Charles, you're brave going there. I think mine's even more mundane. Siri. on my Apple devices. I absolutely hate it. Why can't it just be as good as Alexa? You know, I'm driving in the car, I want to call my mum, and I end up calling like my ex-boss. It's a total nightmare. But just one small anecdote, over the weekend, I managed to break my iPhone. The screen was unresponsive. I couldn't do a forced restart. And I can't believe I'm going to say this, but Siri came to my aid. So if your phone ever freezes to such a point that none of the buttons work, Siri can actually do a forced restart. So whilst I need to improve Siri, it did genuinely make a big difference to my weekend.
It's funny you say that. My 14-year-old, who I was trying to contact with a broken phone, actually showed me how he managed to respond to messages using that exact phone. Well, bless them growing up with that technology from the get-go. And welcome, Simon. Thank you for your time as well.
Hi, I'm Simon Elder. I'm joining from two different angles today. So I'm a principal product lead at Sky, working in the TV products team, which any of you in the Sky market footprint, the Sky Glass TV, the Sky Stream, and the Sky Q set-top boxes is the products that I work across. But I'm also a PhD research student at King's College. And so I work with the FourthRev team on the course design for the Product Management Accelerator. So kind of coming at it from both the industry perspective, the academic King's College perspective, and then actually being able to have worked over the last 15 months or so on the course design for the Product Management Accelerator as well. So it's been a really nice opportunity to bring all of that confluence of different types of experience together in the course of this. And then, so I'm going to keep on theme with TV in terms of the product that I would improve. And it's the generic type of product that I'd want to improve. So I've got remote controls, the Apple TV, Sky Glass, and if you think about the remotes that often come with your standard TV and have about 100 buttons on them, there's got to be somewhere in between not enough buttons on this one through to so many buttons you don't know what to do or be able to use them with any dexterous capability for people with access needs. So the remote control would be the product that I would improve.
I'm sure that resonates with many. I often think there should be a whistle on it if you can locate it, because how often do we lose it? And thank you, Simon. Lastly, Dr. Caitlin Wall, welcome, my co-host for today. Welcome, and over to you.
Thank you. So I am the lead learning experience designer for the King's College London Product Management Career Accelerator. And I've had the lovely opportunity to work with many of you before and hopefully in future. If I could fix a service, it would probably be the path the user takes through filling out immigration documents. Personally, have been through it moving from the US to the UK. I've never felt so dumb than whenever I got two different lists of documents that needed uploaded and could not figure out how to find that document in my life. Didn't even know some of these things existed. And so I think that would be so much nicer if we could streamline that with the user in mind. Today, we're here to talk about a different kind of service, hiring, which I hope is not completely broken, because as you have alluded to, there's a lot of growth that is already happening in that space. Many of you have scaled up organizations, and we're seeing a lot of that in the product space. So I'd like to maybe start with Emma. What is our current outlook that we're seeing in the growth of product management, specifically here in the UK, and the factors that are impacting on that growth?
Hello, can you all hear me well now? Yes, okay, hi. So it's an interesting one. I think, whilst I was at Multiverse, we hired lots of product managers. I'd say probably 10 to 15 at least in my time. And I was hiring across the US and the UK. And what I would say is the quality has fluctuated for sure in the UK, but we found it a lot easier to find really great PMs in the UK, and actually found it really quite difficult in the US, which is not necessarily what I would expect. But I'd say it's a growing trend. There are people from all different avenues going into product, which I think creates a very rich source of different types of backgrounds around product management, and it's only something that I see growing.
Charles, you as well alluded to the fact that you've scaled up several organizations. So what is your view on the current growth in the UK?
Well, I think what's interesting right now, and when I compare to 10, 15 years ago, is that product management is so more accepted in companies. And it's a job that when I was telling people I was a product manager 10 years ago, and people were looking at me like, what the fuck are you, well, what the hell are you talking about? And it's like, yeah, people are interested, they know what you're talking about. Like there's the courses at university, they didn't exist in my days. And it's just a mind shift. I think it actually came from the US. I think a lot of US companies were using product managers much more extensively than in the UK. And this is I think, a good evolution. I think companies also understand the value of product management nowadays. You have things like product-led companies. Yeah, it's a very interesting evolution, and I think it's only gonna accelerate, even though some voices say different things. But yeah, I strongly believe in it.
That's fantastic. I think you bring up a very interesting point there about companies becoming more product-led. There is a current, I don't want to say controversy, but maybe a topical issue out there right now about Airbnb, which has typically been very kind of product-led in past. But there was a recent conference, those of you that may not be aware, where Brian Chesky discussed Airbnb's model, where they're moving away from a product-led idea and into more design-led. And there was a lot of backlash that there is still a space for product. And that's the beauty, is that not all organizations look the same. Product may look different to everyone, but the role of the PM is still very valued and valid. So is there ever the option or the possibility that the product management role would be one size fits all? What do you think, Nick?
And I've worked in lots of different industries, as of the other panelists, and products is definitely not a one size fits all. I do think, though, picking up on what Charles said, the voices in the industry that I think are unhelpful are the ones that try and pigeonhole product management as just a tweak on project management. Being a product manager does not mean owning a backlog. It does not mean writing JIRA tickets. And I've been there, and I've probably done roles like that where I didn't actually understand. The role of a product manager in my mind is about, you're a facilitator, you're a dot connector, you're an enabler. You kind of touched on Airbnb. For me, it's just how the industry's evolving. We need to move away from a PM being a backlog owner towards a PM bringing a cohesive team of experts together to solve meaningful problems. Too many PMs, in my opinion, or in a very humble opinion, focus too much on delivery. Delivery is nothing without discovery. Delivery is nothing with getting product market fit right. If you can bring product management closer to tech, closer to UX, closer to marketing, closer to the business enabling functions, in my mind, that makes a product management career even more exciting than it was when I started 10 years ago.
Emma, I know previously you said you had some real thoughts about the one size fits all PM myth, maybe, if it were. Would you like to expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, I think it really got me thinking, this question, because I think there are some core skills that, like, a good product manager should probably have across industries that does transcend those industries. But then I think I actually think the shape of the product manager probably has changed a lot, or is quite different in different industries, because it's shaped by the company itself. And actually, if people had a broader or greater understanding of what great product looked like in more companies, and more companies were product led, then potentially, not that you would completely converge, every product manager be exactly the same, but I think you might have less nuance, right? You might it may be just that, you know, the standards are more agreed across industries, and maybe that's a controversial view, but I think it's an interesting one to debate.
I think the last question from me for now, I might position to Simon. I know you have a tech background, and I've just seen a comment pop up about commercialism versus tech. It's a very controversial idea of PM, but what is the role of the product manager evolving in future? Is that driven by tech, or is that driven by other opportunities in the space?
I think to narrow it to just tech would be the wrong direction, especially if I think about experience in my organization. So I've been at Sky for 12 years. When I joined, it was one market, so the UK. It's now 7 markets in Europe, and we are a globally syndicated product. So we work with our wider parent organization Comcast across the US, North America. We've announced partnerships in Australia and South Africa as well so far. So the role of the product manager is to understand what is common about the user experience, what is unique about the market, how do those things come together, how do you, from a syndication perspective, develop a syndicatable product that can be adapted to a market, which means you have to understand the market and the audience and those dynamics, and how are you thinking about what is consistently true of the product, what are the layers that roll out around it to make it flexible to fit sort of market dynamics and market needs. Because, for example, the UK is quite a different market even than Germany or Italy is for us from a Sky brand perspective. So it's that ability to synthesize as a product manager, what is your feature, and what audience is it serving, what customers is it serving, rather than what is the technical solution that you are delivering. So technology is the enabler of the product experience, not the other way around. So they're coming back to the customer, whoever that might be, or the user. Then I think that's the focus, and it also allows a much wider opportunity in terms of people who want to be product managers. There are many pathways in, and there are many ways to be a product manager. So it's a way of making the opportunity and the role fit to your experience as well. What it is about you that's unique, that you can marry up to those core skills that Emma touched on earlier.
Brilliant. And I'm going to continue with yourself, Simon, because I'd like to understand, and I'm sure the audience would especially, and we did ask this prior to the webinar commencing, about whether the business you're currently working with, in Sky's case, are hiring PM roles at the moment. Almost all of you said yes, and 43% of UK companies are currently hiring. What specific factors, I guess, have contributed to the increased demand in product managers for the market? Are there any others that are increasing besides the technologically driven aspects that were mentioned already? Do you see any other drivers for demand for PM?
Yeah, so across our wider business, there are a lot of different sort of directorates within the organizations that are looking both to serve either local markets, if you might have local service requirements that all have their own infrastructure in terms of customer-facing service and management of account, etc. There are the internal product managers who are all product owners who are managing features for global or regional capabilities. And then there's the customer-facing products, like the area that I work in. And again, we've probably scaled up over the last 4 years as we've moved into that syndication model that I touched on earlier. We've probably quadrupled the size of the team that I'm in. And that is an entirely product-led organization now of about 160 people. Then working with an affiliated group out of Philadelphia in the US as well, which is larger. So there's quite a degree of levels of skill required, so entry-level product roles through to much more senior ones, obviously, but also then across the business, what is your unique function that you might be serving in terms of a customer base or a user base to have a specialization. So you can be very broad in terms of your customer, you can be very targeted in terms of the capability that you're serving. If it's a video streaming platform that is serving 60 million users across the world, then that has a unique skill set around video streaming, but you can also be around content recommendation or merchandising or whatever the capability might be. So yes, we are recruiting. And obviously, because we're a larger organization, there is churn. So you've also got a constant cycle of renewal as well as growth. So both of those things are happening for us.
That's fantastic. And from my perspective, in speaking with so many interested candidates looking to invest in the program, it is refreshing to see a lot wanting to make the transition between physical and digital, for example, and the diverse nature in which people are, their backgrounds, but also their motivations to potentially study as well. Are there any tips from the panel regarding where job seek or aspiring or current product managers can look to apply for roles, and how big a role does networking play, do you feel, in the successful outcomes potentially? I'll start with anyone that wants to, I guess. Nick.
It's interesting because Emma and I actually met this morning, so that shows the power of networking. I am a massive believer in networking, and I say that from the perspective not only of having to network more than I've ever done in my life running my own independent business, but even when you're in the product space, the product world feels massive, but it's really not. In networking, I think, is the way you uncover opportunities, but networking to me, you have to start from the perspective of wanting to build a genuine human relationship, being curious, asking questions, learning. Networking is not a transactional process, and that can be difficult when you're looking to find work, but there are so many people out there that just want to help, that are willing to share their experiences, that are willing to make connections on your behalf, because, I'm going to sound old saying this, but the world's changed since I came into the workplace. Back then it was, you take your CV, you apply, and 9 times out of 10 you get a call back. I don't know whether we're going to touch on emerging tech like AI, which is everywhere, but at a basic level, that technology is going to stream out 99 of 100 applications for product roles. It just is. So therefore, networking, being in those communities, engaging in forums like Mind the Product, reaching out to folks like us, getting engaged in the conversation, I believe, is the secret, as well as undertaking personal growth and learning through these kind of accelerators. I think that's what sets candidates apart in what is a very competitive market.
I completely agree. And it is interesting to see it evolve and to learn strategies around how to utilize AI for the betterment of your application or your job search, and the skills that you can portray and display, but also to understand how it looks and what it looks for when screening candidates is critical, and how to overcome or how to adapt your application to that. Just before we move on, any other tips on job seeking or where to find before I hand over to Caitlin?
Emma, please.
Sorry. Just to add, so for example, when I was at Multiverse, we would look for referrals, and they would be probably our highest source of people entering the team. We would then look at kind of recruitment agencies, but also things like recruitment platforms like Otta, or I'm trying to think of some other ones, but I think those avenues are also really good to explore, so that you are out there, knowing that a lot of companies are actually becoming more and more loath to work with external recruiters, but are more interested in working with internal recruiters. And they'll be looking at LinkedIn as well. So getting really hot on your LinkedIn game is very, very important, because actually even I was trawling through LinkedIn to find great people on that.
I think just to follow on from that, the thing is, if you are in any size of organization, but especially a medium to larger sized organization, you can network within your company, because that too opens up a lot of opportunity. We have a lot of internal recruitment into our teams, for example, so people moving across from one skill into product from other areas of the business. But also as a product manager, I have shaped the role that I have now based on the connections I've made. So what I've joined the company to do and what I do now, especially around accessibility and inclusion, is very much based on the network that I've built up over time to the extent that it became a part of my role. So it's that engagement with and understanding the customer problems of accessibility needs, for example, makes me a better product manager, but it also gives me a center of excellent to pivot my objectives and development around. So you also have that opportunity to craft the role you want. If you don't want to step outside your organization, how can you make product work for you within the existing company you might be in?
Fantastic. Thank you. Caitlin.
All right, so we're seeing a lot of growth, not just in the tech side, not just in those with tech skills, the strategy side, the business side, the analyst side, and each of these are showing high earning potential. So it's an exciting space to be, but it's also a lucrative space to be. It's on par with other in-demand skills like engineering, artificial intelligence, and analytics. So we're seeing that a mid-level product manager could earn between 60 and 90,000 per year here in the UK. And there is that opportunity for growth, whether that's within your organization, your industry, or within a special skill set like growth, to kind of these specialty areas, senior PMs, principal head of product, things like that. So I want to ask, when it comes to, there's hard skills, our technical knowledge or things like that, but then there's also those transferable skills, confidence, leadership, solutioning. What do you think are the key skills that are most tied to either career progression or salary growth from what you see out there in the PM space? Charles, do you have some input on that one?
Yeah, for me, one of the main product management skills is decision making, and knowing when to make a quick and snappy decision, or when to take your time and analyzing the data, or investigating further. And too often what I see is that people take too much time for everything and then nothing happens. And I think that's a major skill. We always talk about communication skills or something like that, but for me, decision-making skills are so much more important. And it's not really being taught or talked about, or you read the old book maybe if you're interested in it, but nobody talks about it. And for me, it's one of the main ones, together with understanding the problem. A lot of small startups don't have user researchers or UX researchers, and so it comes up to the product manager to do that, and those skills are also lacking. And if you really understand the problem very well, you can make better decisions as well. So they're all interlinked. Yeah, that's my point of view on that.
Emma, for you, what skills have you found are most linked to either salary growth or career progression?
Yeah, great question. I think really those PMs who focus on kind of the communication, leadership, and influencing generally get ahead quite quickly. I would also say that those PMs who are results driven and who are really focused on, hardworking, get their head down, work really well with their team, work well with others, collaborate really well, and, generate results. Those are the PMs who also do really well in my experience.
That's really great to hear. And it's great that this focus is something that is so close to King's, those transferable skills, those human skills, and growing in that space to make sustainable product teams and sustainable product decisions. So that's definitely something we see a lot in that course and as a passion from King's. Danielle, I'll pass back over to you.
I'm just going to extend a question from the audience to Charles regarding what you mentioned, but how does one showcase decision-making skills to employers or recruiters, do you feel?
Well, I think it's very dependent on the situation, obviously. But what I see often is that a problem occurs, or we identify a problem, and then people go and talk to the stakeholders and talk to the tech team and talk to whoever, and it takes ages, and sometimes it doesn't need to do that, and you can I think about decision making as, is it reversible or irreversible? I think it was something from the guy from Virgin Media. if it's reversible, just make the decision. You know, you can always go back and change it. And if it's irreversible, then, you know, do your homework and talk to people and analyze things. And too often there is only one way to make decisions that I see, and it's always to take too much time, looking at too much data, talking to too many people, and it's not necessary, basically. And you, as a product leader, you can see that immediately. I mean, it's from experience. You understand how people work, and hopefully you can talk to these more junior PMs maybe to adjust things. But yeah, I think that's about it.
Thanks, Charles. And I am also going to touch very, very shortly on the employer-facing, industry-facing project that is a part of the program. And I think that will enable people to frame how they showcase their skills and decision-making as a part of that in a practical sense, to give practical examples, because we're always, actually, I'll move on to that now. I'll just shuffle our order around a little. For the audience's benefit, the program is made up of 3 courses and 1 industry-facing project at the end. The industry-facing project is a fantastic way to apply the skills obtained during the first 3 courses. You'll be grouped in teams of 4 or 5, or with 4 or 5 other high-caliber students. You'll meet with one of our employer partners who'll present to you a product or a challenge or a scenario relating to a product. And as a team, you'll work through a 6-week project to come up with innovative and tangible solutions to that product or that scenario, presenting your recommendations back to the client in a consultancy style presentation at the end. The benefits are numerous in the sense that it is a practical way to apply your experience. But if you do picture yourself in an interview, telling a story about how you worked with an employer, that is also a much more powerful demonstration of your value to that prospective employer. Social have been one of our partners. So I'd like to ask Charles, why was it that Social wanted to collaborate with FourthRev and King's as an employer partner, and what benefits did you see?
Well, there's actually, I started talking about this through a person in my network, works at FourthRev, and was asking about this. And I immediately said, like, yes, I want to do this, even not knowing at all what it was about. The reason why I was so interested is because, like I said earlier, in my time, there was no formal education for product management. And I had to learn everything on the spot or from other people, and actually go to events like Mind the Product and try to grab some bits and bobs of information here and there, and read Marty Kagan and all these very interesting people. But having a formal education, I think, is it's important, right? And there are courses obviously out there, but I think nothing like this. And yeah, I mean, it was basically giving back a little bit to the community. I have 20 years of experience, and I always wanted to, you know, to do something. I've guest lectured, I've given talks and stuff like that, but it's not the same as this. I think the audience is more focused, the audience is wider, and so for me it was very valuable. It was also, I think, valuable for the company. We got some really interesting information out of the exercise that we are actually, some of it we are actually going to put in practice. And yeah, it's incredible, actually. And also, of course, the association of a very small startup with a big name like King's College obviously played a part. But yeah, so it's a whole amalgamation of different reasons. And I find it absolutely very interesting. And also the people at FourthRev are absolutely amazing, help you along the way. And it was a joy to work with you all. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you. I'm conscious of time, and I do want to get to as many of the questions from the audience as we can. And that's a brilliant demonstration, I guess, of the value. Thank you ever so kindly, Charles. It's a pleasure to have you on board. I will look at the questions now and get through to some of them, but please feel free to jump in if there's anything else you would like to add. But there's a lot of people we find with the program that obviously that's about 70% are looking to change careers into PM. There's a question here: is someone looking to pivot their career into PM? What are the strengths and negatives working in a startup versus big corporations when making that, I guess, really important life decision as to, could change careers? I might ask Nick, have you got any thoughts of the pros and cons working in a startup versus big corporations as a PM?
Oh, that's a huge question. Thank you for landing that on me. I've primarily worked in corporate in terms of that's where I started my career. And I suppose I was quite fortunate that I worked for a head of product that taught me the ropes from the ground up, because not everybody gets that. And when you have that kind of mentor, and when you have a manager who's a coach rather than command and control, it's huge for your learning. You learn the politics, which I think sometimes is useful, because as a PM, to Emma's point, you've got to influence, you've got to communicate, you've got to understand those stakeholder relationships. I think that I was fortunate that the corporate I worked in was relatively close to customers. And that's where I think, if I look at the other side with startups, and Charles may be able to talk to us a bit more, but I supported a startup. It was the first client I got when I went independent. And the bit I loved the most was, I think one of the panelists mentioned it earlier, I was not just a PM, I was getting hands-on with the UX research. I was talking to customers. I was actually building the remote user testing. I was watching the videos back. I was literally feeling the customer's pain for this startup app. And from my point of view, I'm not sure that you can beat that. Because when you go into a corporate, generally speaking, if they've got any level of product maturity, you're quite a few layers potentially away from the customer. And especially when you get into these dynamics of, well, if there's a protective marketing team who believe they own the customer relationship, all of a sudden, everything you hear about customers is second or third hand. And as a PM, that's just no good. So I suppose what I'm saying is there are great opportunities to learn product and to learn customer empathy in a startup, but it's not for everyone. So I think you've got to figure out your values and your fit, and then just ask intelligent questions, because there are corporates out there that do this stuff well. I just think when you make that decision, you need to go in with your eyes open.
Yeah, if I can add just a little bit to that. So yeah, if you go in, I worked in Vodafone Group, so big company, and then afterwards startups. So I've seen both worlds, and I've learned a lot in the big corporations, but it was so slow, and nothing was happening, and you needed to get sign off for everything, and it was just boring. And in startups, and it's a little bit more structured, obviously. In startups, you wear many hats. You have to do everything. You have to, go and get the coffee as well. I mean, like it's not. Nick said, you have to choose wisely and be ready for it, and go with it in it with your eyes open. And I think for me, what's the most important thing, if you want to go and work in a startup, is check out the head of product or the CPO in that company. And make sure that you will get along with that person, and that person can teach you something if you're quite junior. And it's basically you choosing them rather than the opposite.
The last thing that I would want to add, because all of those points are very close to how I feel about it as well, but I think, depending on how comfortable you are with ambiguity and change, is also what you need to think about, and where you pick your environment. Because in a scale up or a startup, things can be very chaotic and they're very exciting, but they will not appeal to someone who likes, who doesn't like ambiguity. So really think about that when you're picking as well.
All right, I'm going to dive into two of the next questions and combine them. We've got someone who has a social sciences background, and another one more with a technical BA and project management role, but both are looking to see how do they adapt these various backgrounds into the product management role. I know Charles mentioned there didn't used to be any form of real taught aspect. So a lot of people have ended up in product management, but now that there is more competition, how do people purposely go about adapting from their role to career change into the product management space? Emma, that was a thinking face, so I'll come to you.
That was a thinking phase. So in many of the businesses I've been in, I've run secondment programs where I've taken people from sales or customer services, typically those actually because they're so customer facing, and generally have a kind of empathetic lens that it lends itself really well to product. But I've often helped them get a secondment in my team, and then they can use that to even if I haven't had a role for them, they've been able to use that experience externally to say that they've done something in the product space. So if there is an opportunity in your business to somehow get into the product team or work with them for a short period, I would hugely recommend that, because it shows that you have interest in the space. It shows that you've actually gone out there and spoken to some people and done it and been proactive about it, even if you don't end up getting a product role in your specific company. So that's definitely what I would say. And then I think it's really about thinking about the core skills that you need in product management and thinking about how you might be using those in your day-to-day role right now, and therefore what is transferable. And I'm sure loads of stuff is transferable, but if you can highlight that in your CV in a smart way, as well as talk about maybe some of the extracurricular stuff that you're doing or the things that you're approaching, it really will show that passion for why you want to get into product management.
Fantastic. Some really, really good insights there, and we'll continue with
I might just follow up.
questions. Yeah,
Sorry,
please.
Daniel, on that as well. I'm just thinking about, if you are wanting to make that transition from into product management, what is the hook for you? What is the thing that's making it stand out for you as a career opportunity? Do you want to be a more technical product manager? So are you interested in layering up your business analysis to kind of go, I want to do that next step where I make that thing come to life because I've done all the background work and I understand how, and I can really see how I can shape this, versus I want to jump further, or I want to be more creative. But you can kind of say what type, because we've said how diverse it can be as a role, what within that diversity appeals to you. And the opportunity within the accelerator itself is to understand that, because you'll go through that spectrum of what the whole role can be and what bits really engage with you, because then you can also, going into a role, articulate that. You can go, I want to make this transition because, and I have this evidence of my skill base, for example. And if I think about people that we've brought across, like Emma's talking about within and where she's worked as well, people we've brought in to our teams from other areas of the business have been because they can demonstrate that. And you can, when you're recruiting and you're interviewing somebody, you can see that spark. As soon as they start talking about the thing that they have passion about, rather than just, this is my skill base and tell me about a time when, as soon as you can go, this thing, that's the hook that makes you hireable, because that passion comes through to the whatever panel or interview you're in, that really is what gives you that step into getting that role.
That's fantastic, and it dovetails into what I was about to ask regarding a practical portfolio. So for those that are unaware, there are no exams in the program. You're instead empowered to build through very practical application of learning a portfolio of demonstrable skills throughout, and then that live project at the end. So the question that I was just about to ask was the importance of a practical product portfolio, and you've just answered that fantastically. I guess there's a number of people looking to change careers into PM from a non-technical background. Can anyone answer that? The number of questions that we do have about that. So for those that are not technically enabled or have the technical background, but are looking for the transferable skills of the overarching PM role of managing the different stakeholders and functions, how does that look like for someone without a technical background? Is a technical background necessary?
Can I take this? I think most products, head of product who build a product team, they are looking for building a cognitive diverse team. They don't want cookie cutter people anyway. So you're gonna try to find people with different angles, maybe from analytics or design or customer service or sales or whatever. And when you build a team, you're gonna automatically look for different profiles. You don't want the same. And so, as a candidate, I think you should never be afraid of accentuating your angle either. And maybe it's explained in the job description, or maybe not, but I think it's certainly a plus to be different. I've hired what was it again? Some like a rocket scientist or something like that in the past, and she was amazing. She was a data scientist, and she was one of the best PMs I've ever had. So you know, it doesn't matter where you come from.
Can I just add to that?
Yep, please.
So I would describe myself as a technology geek, but I'm not sure I'm technical, if that makes sense. So I have an interest, I have a passion. I love what technology can do in terms of creating customer experiences, but I'm not a technical person. I think we need to debunk the myth that to be a great PM, to Charles' point, you've got to be technical. I just don't believe it's true. To Simon's point, if you want to orientate yourself more into APIs or microservices or platforms, yes, perhaps you might need to be more technically orientated, but you can learn that. For me, the more important skill is A, having an interest in it, and B, just being curious. Because when you're curious, when you're a good communicator, when you can collaborate, that's when you get the best out of engineers. I've got some amazing relationships with engineers I worked with a decade ago, and we don't when we meet, we don't talk about code. We talk about what are the enabling technologies and what experiences are they creating. So you can meet technical people in the middle without having to be overly technical. Would be my synthesis.
I think it's much more of the EQ of bringing together you're quite often the manager of a virtual team. So you're not managing people in a literal hierarchical sense, but you're bringing people together from that skill set so that you are, to the next point, having that conversation about what technology enables or what design enables or what the market research is telling you or that the propositions team are telling you about where they're wanting to position a product, for example. It's the ability to, that synthesis is the core skill, not technological understanding, because you've got a brilliant architect and you've hopefully got a brilliant delivery team behind them as well. You can lean into them. That's what they're there for. You're synthesizing their expertise into the overall product experience. So it's not, the technology assumption, and I think it sort of maybe comes out of Silicon Valley being that sort of genesis of product initially, has sort of set that expectation. But if I look at our team again, it's incredibly diverse in terms of people who come from editorial. I first did a degree in TV production, never done anything technical. And then I did PR and then I did product. So it's quite, and that's me in a team with consultants and legal secretaries who are now head of product. You know, you've got quite a diverse catchment, and that's what makes the team, to I think everybody's point, that much better at being a cohesive product team, because you're coming at it with so many different perspectives, not just the technical.
Thank you. That's invaluable. And there was one question. I'm going to have to wrap them up. I do apologize for everyone. We've got so many more questions we could go on with. But it did relate to the reverse of that also, with Harris's question being a technical product manager and someone with a heavy tech background doing the reverse. He finds it challenging with both the tech and business aspect. The course contains not only the technical necessary skills and understanding of it, not necessarily the deep technical knowledge, but managing product and strategy, product design and development, and launching products to market. But it's the business application of that that's key to the program that you were so involved with Simon as well. So for Harris, I hope that answers your question as well. We're getting very close to the end. I'm going to ask the team behind the scenes to download the questions. So what we might do is pose a lot of these questions to the panel offline as well, and send around a response to the questions we couldn't get to with so many valuable questions at hand as well. But we've got maybe 60 seconds each, and I do need to do a quick wrap up because there's something very exciting to inform the audience of as well. But any other tips for starting, changing, or advancing one's career in PM? Literally 60 seconds. It's not long enough, is it? So what we're going to do is send around, for the audience's benefit, the recording for this purpose, but also we'll get certainly some responses to the questions that we couldn't get to as well. The most important thing is that people today have made a decision to give up their time, their lunch break or whatever it may be, to actually attend and listen to you, a fabulous panel of experts, imparting your wisdom as to how they may take the next step of their careers in product. And for that, I thank you. It has been quite amazing, and I'm sure the feedback that will be distributed post will reflect it, but please, for the audience's benefit, do take the time to do that. I've got one more thing to do, but I will take the time now to thank Charles, Simon, Nick, Emma, and Caitlin. Thank you ever so kindly for your time, and stick around for the audience. I've got something else to mention as well. Thank you all.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Been fun.
You've been brilliant. There is some news coming out. The program commences onboarding next week. The most important thing that people can do after making such a wise decision to invest so much of your time today to find out more is to take the next step in your decision-making process, and that would be to hopefully download the brochure that you'll see in the chat function and the Q&A there, but also to action that by booking a time with your enrolment advisors to discuss your individual circumstances. They're experts in guiding you through a life decision such as this, as to invest in a program of this nature. They'll approach your individual circumstances with a great deal of empathy, especially when changing careers. It's not just the investment that you're looking to do in study, it's changing careers, and that's a very important life decision. And they're there to guide you through that whole process as well. We do have a number of payment plans that are available. Again, speak to your enrolment advisor. For attendees, applications will be open a bit longer. You may have seen on the King's website and FourthRev websites that applications closed on Monday. We will hold them open for the rest of this week and into next for those attendees. But for myself personally, it has been testament to the topic, but I think testament to the panelists that we had not only such high registrations, but the best part of 150 people in attendance. And for that, I would certainly like to say thank you once again. You've made an impact on people's lives that are considering what to do next, and what is a career in product management for them, or are they looking to advance their existing career? Again, we'll send this around. Please fill out the feedback. Please download the brochure and book a time to speak with your enrolment advisor. It's a very wise decision to invest in yourself. Thank you all. It's been great.